Welcome to this virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro for Sunday, May 2nd, 2021. This congregation has covenanted with all Unitarian Universalist congregations to affirm and promote the inherent dignity and worth of every person and reverence for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We believe that diversity is a source of strength and are accepting of all without regard for gender or sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religious background, economic status, or physical challenges. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you are on your life's journey, welcome. My name is Kay Yost, and I've been a member of this fellowship for about 9 years. Back in 2016, this fellowship approved a vision statement that I find to be both helpful and hopeful. This statement reads, "We envision the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro as a diverse and vibrant spiritual community. Rooted in the practice of loving kindness, we are moved to act with justice and generosity in our fellowship and beyond." I find this statement, that we are rooted in the practice of loving kindness, is one that gives me hope as we make our way through challenging times. If you are a visitor here, we thank you for spending time with us today. We don't know yet when in-person services will resume and under what conditions, but we hope you'll consider visiting in person whenever that time may be. At the end of this video, there is contact information for inquiries about the UUFW and membership and instructions on how to make donations. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote 7 principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that when our annual meeting takes place in June, a vote will be taken concerning acceptance of the proposed 8th principle. Our social action team has been encouraging us to adopt this principle, which reads, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." And now, in keeping with our UU traditions, I share these words before the lighting of the chalice. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom.
Our words of prayer are by Maureen Killerin. This prayer is for all who are fearful about the economy, about the fate of our country, health care for yourself and your children, for all whose heart aches at the injustices being done to others in our name, for all who fear for the survival of the planet, for all who fear whether they will be allowed to enter or to leave or to remain. We make this prayer for all who deal daily with failing health, difficult diagnoses, challenging treatments, or healthcare routines. For all who struggle with difficulties at school or work, for all who are facing hard decisions, for all who are living in challenging relationships. We make this prayer for ourselves, for all the fears and concerns, the joys and the celebrations. We make this prayer for the children, for their future, and for the ever-blooming possibilities of this season. We make this prayer to hold in our hearts all the precious blessings of our lives. We make this prayer not because we expect it to make the world turn or to change. We make this prayer to remind ourselves of who we are, of what life is, and how important love can be. We make this prayer because these words are what we need. Today we have a joy shared by Heather Banks. She shares the joy of grandson Liam Banks' birth on Tuesday, April 27th in Roanoke to her son Mark and her daughter-in-law Danielle. Granddaughter Emily, now 17 months, has several Big Sister t-shirts. Danielle's parents are up from Florida to help for several weeks. Let us hold this joy and all the joys and sorrows of this congregation that remain unspoken in our hearts together quietly.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Letter from Our Better Angels by Sean Parker Dennison. Dear one, we have received your letter and we hate to tell you, not hate so much, but are a bit afraid to say, we cannot grant your request as stated, but can only remind you of familiar things. First, faith. Faith in yourself and trust in others. We know it can be terrifying to be vulnerable, but only when you share your softest side will we be able to break through. Next, hope. Hope is not an empty fairy tale. It is the true story of all the times human beings like you have found a way to create the future, though you didn't know how. And of course, love. Love that demands you cherish all people, not just yourself and safety. Love that is not satisfied until every argument ends abruptly when one child says, "That hurts." There is so much to learn and relearn. The world teaches you to be hard, to negotiate and defend, to avoid giving too much and to the wrong people. There are no wrong people. You are also not wrong, and when you encounter the poor, the broken, the unhoused, and unwelcome, you are looking, if you pay attention, at us, calling to you to answer your own prayers. If you want to change the world, first, be sure that you are changing yourself. Be tender, be kind, be at peace. Be all the things you wish for. Be your own better self. It isn't without cost, but it will be free.
Though days be dark with storms, and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. When sorrow heals my soul, and burdens make me strong, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. The troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on.
Inexplicable by Karen G. Johnston. Inexplicable. How we rise each morning instead of burying our heads under bed covers and sewing them shut. Why we keep on welcoming babies with bone-deep joy into this sordid world. How we fill burlap sacks with grit and gratitude, our hands shredded as we drag one over the other. How we refuse the daily pull towards greedy dark, keeping at least one toe, some of us whole torso, in the light. Inexplicable. It's what makes a poem worth writing, worth reading, worth flooding the world with redundant, flawed attempts at explanation. It's just the way it is. There is no other way. Stumbling every time, practice or no. Just part of the bargain. The unavoidable, intractable, inexplicable bargain.
When I was in my mid-20s, I got divorced after 8 years of marriage. The divorce was the right move for both me and my ex-wife. We had married too young, under too much pressure for the resources we had available to us. There were good times and good experiences, certainly, but we were nowhere near financially established, and neither one of us knew ourselves before jumping into the commitment that we seriously believed at the time would be for our entire lifetime. Not long after it ended, I entered a relationship with my partner, Walter. So many things were looking up, so many stresses reduced or removed, but I didn't realize then that you need to mourn the end even of things that need to end. I hadn't yet realized how to replace the worldview in which I could see self-worth only in the traditional roles my parents and my small community had handed me. I hadn't yet achieved an outlook that allowed positive self-discovery and diverse approaches to living a good life. I went into depression. I don't know if it was true biochemical clinical depression. I never went to a professional for diagnosis. I just knew that the symptoms fit what I read about clinical depression. I had plenty of situational triggers, but there was no thinking my way out of it, no way of looking on the bright side. No amount of evidence helped. I had a loving relationship. I was more secure than ever before in my life, at any time in my life. I had degrees, and none of that mattered. I could not find my way to hope. No way to see a future for myself. Any future. And after a few years of this, Walter and I went on about our lives, and I did the best I could under those circumstances. But Walter and I went and spent a summer as volunteers on an archaeological dig in Jordan. Our base camp was on the campus of a UN school for refugees. There was so much to engage my mind and senses, but I couldn't see it through the fog surrounding me. I did my work. I studied to get graduate credit for the archaeological experience. I was pleasant to those around me, and then while most everyone else was taking an afternoon nap to escape the heat of the middle of the day, I went on to the hot rooftop and felt alone and incapable of conceiving a world of connection and hope. But one day on that rooftop, a miracle happened. Yes, I used the M word, and I don't know how it happened, and certainly had no concept of a supernatural power intervening in my biochemistry. But something changed for some reason other than my thinking my way through it. I didn't just buck up or deal with it. One day there on that rooftop in the hot midday Middle Eastern summer sun, I felt something shift. Suddenly, I physically felt it. I may even have heard a click, though if you prefer to think of it this way, I'm happy calling it simply a metaphor. But I physically felt a change. It was like the dark clouds parting, revealing the sun. And from that point on, sure, I experienced sadness or uncertainty or all the other challenges of mind and spirit that all mentally and spiritually healthy humans do sometimes. It's part of life. But somehow I was past the hopelessness and I had a future again. Now, I'm the first to admit that this was a rare occurrence. Biochemical problems require biochemical solutions, behavioral problems, behavioral solutions, psychological treatment for psychological crisis, spiritual practice for spiritual despair, medicine or therapy or prayer or many other technologies for wiring oneself differently for tomorrow than what brought one to today. All these are miracles, whether they are understood scientifically or spiritually. Whatever the mechanism, the impossible, what we believed impossible starts to become possible as barriers to hope are removed and lowered, and one finds a way to move on. UU minister Erica Hewitt has written, sometimes the brokenness is immense and the only grasp, the only power we have over that large and complicated pain looming over us is to bear witness, to tell its story and to seek out companions and helpers who are willing to agree that yes, there is something breaking or messy in front of us, and we will not leave or even look away until repair has begun. If love begins with attention, repair takes the form of compassion, bearing witness, speaking out. Repair looks like connection, justice, or revolution. Hope is future-oriented. It does not look only at how things are now or how they have been in the past. It doesn't look at a track record of things going well or poorly. Hope puts a basic trust in the potential for things to become better than they are now. Just as our first principle calls on us to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every individual, no matter their circumstances, and no matter how those circumstances would tend to prejudice our evaluation of their human worth. Hope calls on us to trust that the justice that is lacking in the world around us, sometimes lacking in our own hearts, has the true potential to unfold and flower in the future, not through doing nothing, but by pursuing the justice we wish for, acting to bring it about. Hope tells us that when we look at ourselves and cannot see a future, that a miracle of friendship or of faith allows a glimmer of our potential to shine through. Hope tells us that racial justice is not an impossibility, even though it will take much work. And when our circumstances do not allow us to see that truth, others can hold that hope for us until we are able to carry it ourselves. Our time right now brings us many opportunities, if you will, opportunities to lose hope. We're still not through the pandemic. We lose people who are important to us to many causes. The financial futures of many around us, and perhaps some of us, may have been wrecked by pandemic-related economic shifts. There is still unjust killing at the hand of police. People hanging on by a thread are evicted for things beyond their control. Our politics is divided, and the filibuster means that many pieces of needed legislation that a small majority of our congresspersons support, but a larger percentage of the American people support, that these will nonetheless not be signed into law until political situations change. It is easy to lose hope. All we have to do is be honest with ourselves, and we can lose track of the great potential that exists for a world transformed by our care. Future orientation for ourselves and for those who are lost in the present or the past is essential. It is indeed a miracle that can bring us through. Sometimes hope leaves us, and all around us there are those who live in situations that make hope seem like a mere denial of reality. Sometimes a miracle comes. Sometimes we have to hold the hope another cannot find or sustain. Sometimes we have to hope for each other, on behalf of each other. I would like to offer the poem Waiting to be Born by Tess Bomberger as our benediction today. Waiting to be born again, into the morning, onto the day, from dark warm comfort of my bed full of sleep and blankets, back into the bright spring-scented air with all its life and branches. Waiting to be born away into fresh vision, onto clean spirit, to a world of wordless resurrection where life sits side by side with death, watching the rising and falling of our many human breaths, the daily negotiations of the indefatigable sun, the pretty patterns of our slowly rotating stars, the childlike candor of the bright, unblinking planets, glancing at each other, now and then, with peaceful eyes. Amen, and blessed be.